Okay. All right, Jeff, we're ready.
All right, give me about 20 seconds. I'll let you know.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Well, good morning. We've got a lot of information to share, and I'm grateful to have my colleague and friend, Sheriff Richard Roundtree, with us this morning. Unfortunately, with a slight change in scheduling, Major General Neil Hersey and Colonel Shawpick are no longer available to be with us this morning. We look forward to bringing them to our next press conference that they might share what activities are taking place at Fort Gordon on the installation and certainly its impact in our community. I think everyone understands how important Fort Gordon is to us in our region and certainly to the nation as well. And with that, I once again want to welcome our sheriff, who's going to be sharing some very important information with us as well. This morning, our intent is to cover several topics. We will look at Augusta's COVID-19 status to date and share a few data points. I'll also provide a brief update on Governor Kemp's executive order. We'll have a review of the executive order that is in place here in the city of Augusta. We'll give a broad community update with activities that are taking place in our city. And we'll also share some basic safety measures regarding Halloween. And then I'll kick it over to our sheriff, who will provide us with some updates in terms of addressing community policing, gun violence, and activities that the sheriff is proactively doing to make our community safer, better, and stronger. And so with that, thank you to the members of the media who are joining us and those of you who are joining us via YouTube, Facebook, and the city's website through live stream. As of yesterday, October the 7th, 2020, Augusta has seen a cumulative number of 7,327 positive COVID-19 cases. As of yesterday, there were 25 new cases in the city, with 168 total deaths in the city of Augusta. We once again want to make sure that we're lifting up families who have lost loved ones as a result of COVID-19. Know that you continue to be in the city's prayers and thoughts at the loss of your loved ones. Those 168 individuals, they matter to this community. They made their own mark in our city, and our hearts, thoughts, and prayers continually go out to the families who have lost loved ones as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic in our city. With the good news that we're seeing, cases continue to go down in Richmond County, certainly in the region as well. I want to urge our citizens that this is not time to put our foot on the brakes because winter is just around the corner, and with it comes the flu season as well. With that in mind, I want to encourage all of our citizens that this is time for you, if you have not already done so, to get your flu shot. The flu shot, there's a national goal of getting 25 million flu shots in the United States of America. That's a national goal. I want to encourage all of our citizens in Richmond County, be part of that group of individuals who go out and get your flu shot. Urge your parents, our senior citizens, and elderly members of your families to make sure that they do also go out and get their flu shot. From an executive order standpoint, based on most recent guidance from Governor Kemp, I've once again extended the executive order requiring face coverings or masks in the city of Augusta in public spaces. And that order will run from October the 9th at midnight to November the 8th at 11:59 p.m. That's consistent with Governor Kemp's executive order that he signed on September the 30th, extending the statewide public health emergency order. And as a result of that, we want to make sure that we continue to keep our foot on the gas in terms of making sure that our citizens are safe. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance as we continue to slow the spread of the virus and flatten the curve. Copies of the Executive Order 2020-013, will be on the City of Augusta's website. If you visit the City of Augusta's website at augustagA.gov, you can click on the COVID-19 alerts at the top of the banner, and it will take you to the executive order. In this order, we want to remind our citizens that all persons entering a commercial establishment as a consumer and all employees working in a commercial establishment, including but not limited to restaurants, retail stores, salons, barbershops, grocery stores, and pharmacies in Augusta, Richmond County, are required to wear a mask or face covering while having face-to-face interactions with each party. Employees that are working alone in a separate office space or in a workspace not accessible to the general public and where social distancing can be done easily with sufficient space, there is no face covering or mask required in the event that you're able to do so. Governor Kemp's executive order that was signed on September the 30th extends the public health state of emergency for the entire state of Georgia. The governor also issued an executive order that extends most, if not all, of his already applicable rules from his previous COVID-19 executive orders. That includes shelter-in-place requirement for those defined by the CDC as being high risk or suffering from a severe illness. The language was added that state residents of long-term care facilities other than community living arrangements can receive visitors permitted by the state of Georgia through the Department of Public Health. Once again, those individuals who are in long-term care facilities that are community can in fact receive visitors at this time. There remains a ban on large gatherings that is in place until November the 8th and will remain in place until such time that the governor relaxes or removes that requirement that bans those large gatherings. I understand that everybody wants to return to normal, but we have to continue to be vigilant. As we all begin to plan for fall and winter holiday celebrations, the CDC has offered guidance and advice to help protect individuals, our families, our friends, and communities from COVID-19. And with Halloween just around the corner, I want everyone to understand that many traditional activities are high risk for spreading the virus. As the mayor and a member of the Augusta Commission, as well as our commissioners, I'm asking that we stay away from activities that include indoor haunted houses, hay rides, crowded indoor costume parties, and events where large gatherings will take place. For detailed information about Halloween safety, I urge everyone to visit the cdc.gov's website and adhere to all of the guidelines and rules that the CDC is providing to ensure that we do not have any community outbreaks related to COVID-19 during this state of emergency and public health pandemic. I want to mention that there are a number of community-related activities that are drive up and contactless in nature. The James Brown Arena staff and team will have a parking lot trunk or treat event. You can visit their website. And I believe our sheriff is also sponsoring an event that he'll be happy to share more information with you about in just a few moments. To all of our citizens that are struggling with COVID-19 fatigue, I want to remind everyone that we cannot let our guard down. Just like all of us, we've been challenged since effectively March of this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, not just in our county, in our region, our state, and certainly in our nation. I want everyone to continue to watch your distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, and to avoid large crowds and remain at home if you feel sick. We know firsthand the challenges that everyone has faced and how it's made a difference in our lives, up to and including having lost loved ones. Families continue to struggle, and I want to urge everyone to make sure that they do the 3 W's. wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your physical distance. As an aside, over the past several months, the city of Augusta has served over 200,000 meals through food distributions. We've connected families to resources, whether it be for housing, clothing, or access to computers. And we're thankful for our partners. I want to thank the Sheriff's Office and his agency for providing patrol and traffic control for us this past weekend for the food giveaway in partnership with When We All Vote, Fuel the Vote, the New Georgia Project, our teen ambassadors. Those things could not have happened without our Sheriff's Agency, our fire department, and a host of others to include engineering, traffic control, and the number of volunteers who helped stand this incredible event up as we provided 800 healthy food boxes of fruits and vegetables, fresh fruit and vegetables, to individuals from across this community. There's so much more work to do, and I want to thank our Department of Agriculture, Commissioner Gary Black, the Salvation Army, and a host of others who have been partners with us over these last several months. I also want to once again announce that we're excited to be bringing on board our new administrator, Mr. Odie Donald II. He has been chosen by the Augusta Commission to come and serve the city of Augusta. Currently, Mr. Donald is the city manager for the city of South Fulton, one of Georgia's newest cities. And we're excited to have him. He's ready to come and roll up his sleeves and get to work to ensure that all Augustans not only have what they need, but more importantly, that we continue work towards building a city of opportunity for everyone, where people want to live, learn, to work, and to raise their families. And so with that in mind, over the past several weeks, there have been a number of things that have taken our attention in the city of Augusta. And as we strive daily to change the outcome of our residents' lives, whether it's around food insecurity or some of the other very tough issues, every day we're faced with how to address mental health issues that are on the rise or the uptick of senseless violence. And this past weekend, Augusta experienced its own fair share of senseless violence, gun violence in the community, and we lost individuals through senseless gun violence. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the life that was taken away in Felicia Harris, a 33-year-old member of the LGBT community. And unfortunately, Felicia was the third person to be killed in the area in the last year from the LGBT community. We know in our city that we want to provide a safe, healthy, and a prosperous city for all of our citizens. Gun violence, gun homicides, and assaults occur at high rates within cities, and they have a disproportionate impact, particularly on communities of color and communities that disproportionately are underfunded where neighborhoods are concerned. And so as we continue to grapple with the two pandemics that are wreaking havoc across the world, COVID-19 and systemic racism, we're sadly witnessing a third pandemic in cities across America in 2020, to include our own city in Augusta. But we're very fortunate to have a leader, an innovative leader, in the person of our sheriff, Sheriff Richard Roundtree. And so at this point, I want to turn it over to our sheriff as we see heartbreaking shootings and gun homicides primarily affecting Black and brown communities, even as the overall crime rate remains down for the year. And with that, Sheriff Roundtree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, members of the media and the public, for taking the time out to hear our concerns and our response to the city as these crises are unfolding in front of us. First of all, let me cover three things, and then we'll touch on anything else that the media might want to bring to light. I want to discuss the COVID response as it relates to law enforcement here in Richmond County. Then we'll go over the crime rate as it stands and the proactive measures we're taking to decrease those, and then also some mental health issues that we're facing within the law enforcement community as it relates to crime, and also first responder personnel well-being. As it relates to COVID within the Richmond County Sheriff Office and the city of Augusta, as you know, a month and a half ago, the city did see a rapid increase of COVID cases, which dramatically affected the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. To date, we've had approximately 160 of our personnel infected. Only a few required hospitalization, but unfortunately, we did have one of the first line of duty deaths within the Georgia area after the executive order was signed in relation to first responders in COVID-19, and Sergeant Norton was a line of duty death due to COVID-19 related illness. So we're very saddened to lose one of our guardians of the community to that. However, we are now taking steps, again, with the mask, with the proactive measures of social distancing and washing hands with the number of contacts. About a month ago, we were averaging approximately 8 to 10 new cases within the agency per week. That has dramatically dropped to about 3 to 5 now. So we are working our way down as it relates to the number of contacts and number of infections that we're having in Richmond County. So we do see a positive direction, even though we still have a long way to go. And I'm still encouraging our people to always mask up when they're in the public and within individual workspace. So we do feel positive we're going in the right direction, but we're not there yet. So I do encourage the citizens to please help us with that as we do respond to your incidents, because we're not going to refuse a call. COVID-19, this pandemic throughout this whole year, we have not refused a crisis or a call, and it has not limited our response whatsoever. And we are committed to continuing that trend. As it relates to COVID-19 in our jail population, again, we announced a month and a half ago when we had an infectious rate within our jail that spread over 2 pods through cooperation with our mental health professionals, with our EMA director coming in with some guidance and testing guidelines to Dr. Goggins and his team. We were able to significantly reduce those. As we stand today, we only have 3 individuals who are in quarantine and only 1 positive case, active case within the Charles B. Webster Correctional Center right now. Again, we are very excited about the progress we made, but we're still extremely proactive with the daily population of about 950 inmates, and people still coming in. We're still processing cases every day. We still have to be vigilant as it comes to that. But my correctional staff, as well as the deputies transporting, have done an exceptional job to reduce those numbers when we had that outbreak. So I'm extremely excited to report that reduction. But again, like I say, it's not time to celebrate. It's just time to keep you updated and keep moving forward. As it relates to crime, since I've taken office 8 years ago, and I'm very thankful for the citizens of Richmond County that have elected me to a 3rd term in office. We have seen a decrease in Part 1 violent crimes and property crimes since 2013, since we've taken office. Unfortunately, the violent crimes, the shootings and the homicides take center stage when it comes to media attention. As it does to gun violence, the reduction of gun violence still remains, since I've taken office, our number 1 priority in Richmond County. That has been our number 1. Unfortunately, it's been an uptick throughout the United States, but like I said, my primary concern is in Richmond County. We've done significant efforts to remove illegal weapons from the streets of Augusta, but one of our main concerns, and we did a program a few months ago about 9 at night locking your cars, we're still having a substantial amount of weapons being stolen from unsecured vehicles. So we're telling individuals who are responsible gun owners, if you're going to have a weapon in your vehicle, a legal weapon in your vehicle, at the very least, lock your doors, lock and secure the weapon. For an average, if we seize 100 guns, we get another 75 that are stolen through cars. So we only have a net gun reduction of about 25. That remains our biggest priority of illegal guns being put on the streets. Now, that being said, the other underlying factors is the fact that the individuals within our city are really rapidly escalating to gun violence, where We saw our violent crime rate as relates to robberies and commercial robberies have significantly reduced over the years. The gun violence uptick has, in fact, dramatically increased, where individuals are now showing no remorse within our communities to not only present a firearm, but to be using it in an offensive manner. And unfortunately, a lot of these cases where we didn't see before, where they resulted in gunfire, now are resulting in death. As I've said many times before, we were fortunate enough to have a level 1 trauma center within Richmond County, which significantly reduced our homicide rate as a result of the gun violence. But now we have seen more and more of these incidents become deadly and fatal in nature. And that is very concerning to us. That's why we're now increasing our proactive team, where we were just escalating them on the weekends, over holidays, that they're based on our budget concerns, that we're pretty much running them 7 days a week in areas in which we see an uptick of gun violence. But that comes down to the community. It comes down to our individuals who are within our community, that we have to band together, not just from our law enforcement standpoint, from our faith base, from our civic organizations, that we're not going to tolerate gun violence in our community. It is a community problem. Now, we are the tip of that spear as it relates to it. And as the mayor related earlier, we have seen a reduction in total violent crime in the last 8 years. But anytime you have a homicide or a shooting, especially of a high profile nature like we had at the Augusta Mall, it brings it to the forefront. Now, that incident at Augusta Mall, as far as gun violence, is an extremely isolated incident, but again, it brings to forefront to bear the concerns that we have as it relates to violent crime. But it is a community concern. It is a community task. We have to get mobilized to the fact that we have to get, as we have so many other passionate cries for relief within our community, gun violence has to be one of them. It has to be at the forefront, that we have to take responsibility for our individual actions and individuals within our community. Each these individuals, and I especially used to say when they're related to juveniles in possession of firearms and committing these crimes, these juveniles go back to a home. They do not live on the street. So it is the guardians and the parents' responsibility to know what is coming into your home, the activities that your youth are engaging in. You are responsible for those individuals. So we do need more community involvement as it relates to our young people. I have always been an advocate of education and growth and job opportunities within our community, and it still remains so. Incarceration is a tool of law enforcement, but it is not the solution, and it never will be. You can never lock your way up out of a problem. It is a community concern that we are throwing every resource that we have, but we need to have the community engaged into the fact of not just looking at the faults in which we have in our community, but what are solutions that we can bring? What can we do for rallies to advocate against gun violence, and not just social injustice, but against gun violence within our own community? We have to be responsible for those. I'm saying we're not going to harbor those individuals. We're not going to aid those individuals, and we're not going to remain silent when we know these individuals are causing disruptive behavior in our community. That is our job as citizens of Richmond County, and let you know that Richmond County Sheriff Office are going to be leading that effort, and we will be behind you every step of the way, and we do need that. The last point I want to cover is our mental health response as it relates to crime and incidents within Richmond County. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we have seen an uptick of mental crisis cases, suicides. We're seeing a large number of traffic-related deaths and incidents within Richmond County. All of it, again, compounded by the pandemic. And we as in law enforcement, I'm almost 30 years into my 10 years in law enforcement. When we first started, law enforcement officers were never really trained in mental health crisis. We were trained to respond to incidents, to stabilize the incident, then turn it over to other individuals. Now we see that the increase of calls in which we respond to, that we don't have the luxury now of waiting. to turn those incidents over or resolve those incidents with mental health professionals. So now we're partnering with those. One of the things that we did first for our emotional standpoint within Richmond County that we applied for in our last budget cycle through the commission to a in-house mental health professional assigned to the Richmond County Sheriff Office. That individual has created programs within the Sheriff's Office that we think have been a tremendous asset to the mental health and also the ability for the deputies to respond to and identify people who are in crisis, and also just for the well-being of individual deputies for the amount of the violent crimes and, again, of course, the pandemic issues that are going on, just to have a place or a person to talk to. One of the things that we are extremely excited about is the fact of our introduction of we're going to be starting a crisis intervention team. We are partnered with members of the state through grants. We were initially supposed to start this initiative about 6 months. Because of the pandemic, of course, we won't be able to go out as quickly as we can, but we do plan to start this beginning November 1st, where we now, the state is providing a mental health professional assigned to Richmond County, along with a trained crisis intervention officer who will go through training for crisis intervention that will be responding to real-time calls as it relates to mental disorder, suicide, suspicious person medical incidents, abuse, abandonment, neglect, and domestic violence issues, and also dealing with the homeless, that we'll have a person from the state assigned directly to the sheriff office. As the trial basis, we're going to start with one to see how the program is a pilot program. And then, of course, if we have tremendous success, they're going to try to get two assigned directly to Richmond County so we can work both sides of the county, where that mental health crisis intervention team person responds, again, in real time to crisis situation to avoid some of the incidents that we've seen around the United States as it relates to people who, officers who are dealing with mental health issues, who may have respond or overly respond to a situation because they can't identify a person who's in crisis. So we're extremely excited. We wish we could have started this 6 months ago as we had intended, but now we do have a start date of November 1, and we definitely will be putting more information about that once we get that person placed and on the ground. But we're excited to announce that I actually just received the policy and procedure today prior to this meeting to put that into effect for the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. So we are excited to be a part of that program, because now we have to train our officers, not just in law enforcement techniques, not just in de-escalation, not just in crisis intervention, but to deal with problems in real time to avoid some of the issues that we are seeing each and every day. So the citizens of Richmond County should be extremely excited about that. We take that extremely seriously when it comes to the mental health and the homeless and the suicide and domestic violence rates that we see are happening in Richmond County. So I will conclude with the fact that as we do recognize that we have seen a recent uptick in gun violence, that has always been our number one concern. We are, again, throwing every possible resource we have at that issue. But we do need the community support, not just into the fact of identifying the fact that we do have an increase in gun violence from time to time, but what are we doing? What are we saying? Are we harboring these fugitives? Or are we supplying them? Or are we just abdicating their existence by being silent? That in itself can also be a hindrance to keeping a community safe. Lastly, I would say that the officers and men and women of this agency, we live, work, worship, and play in this community. This is our community. This is not just our job. This is our home, our family's home. So we're totally invested. We just choose to be on the front lines in reference to dealing with these situations. So we continue to be excited about the partnership we have with the government, with the mayor's office. His staff has been very supportive when it comes to identifying resources that can become not just from the county level, but from the state level and the national level that some other agencies are using to employ to decrease crime. So we're excited about that. We welcome partnerships with other organizations who are doing things to reduce crime, and we continue that effort. So that is my commitment to you as the leader of this agency. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Sheriff Roundtree, for your forward-thinking approach to what you and the men and women who are part of the largest full-service sheriff's agency in the state of Georgia. Thank you for keeping Augustans safe. All across America, we have men and women, brave men and women, who are risking their lives every single day to interrupt violence before it begins, while at the same time investing in exactly the people most at risk to harm. And thank you so much for what you have done and what you continue to do. Before we get to the point of engaging questions from the media, I want to take another approach with what you said. Keeping a safe community is a community effort. It's not just the sheriff's agency that's responsible for the health, welfare, and safety of all of our citizens. And so I want to take a moment now and urge all of our citizens, our faith leaders in our churches, our nonprofit organizations, our businesses, that safe communities, safe streets, safe neighborhoods begins and ends with every one of us. And so with the violence that took place this weekend, if there are individuals out here in the public who may be listening and tuned in, if you have information related to the murder of Felicia Harris, I would urge you to call our Richmond County Sheriff's Office at 706-821-1000. They will be happy to take any information, and they can certainly take that information anonymously as well. But I urge you, if you have any information related to the murder of Felicia Harris, please call the Richmond County Sheriff's Office at 706-821-1000. I want to acknowledge a couple of things that the sheriff has done in his tenure. Early on in his tenure during the Obama administration, he quickly began implementing the 8 Can't Wait goals of the 21st century policing effort. And I applaud he and his team for that. They have already been on the front lines of community policing, but it requires the city and all of our citizens to be engaged in that good work if we're going to have a safe, prosperous city that people want to come to and live, to learn, to work, and to raise their families. And so with that being said, I once again want to talk directly to Augustans. 2020 has been a tough year for us. Not only has it been a tough year for us, but more than anything, we've stood together, we weathered this storm, and we'll get out on the other side better and stronger. And so with that, I think it's appropriate for us at this point to pause and take some questions from the partners in media.
Sheriff?
Hey, Susan, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Great. Well, Mayor Davis mentioned the homicide of Felicia Harris. Is the sheriff's office investigating that as a hate crime?
We have no indications of that yet. One of the things that we do, again, in every homicide case, and let me preface this by saying we are trying to do everything we can to reduce our homicide, but we have an extremely high clearance rate when it comes to homicide, and I'm confident in my team that this case will be cleared too. It is some underlying factors based on some evidence we got that leads us to a motivation, not more so of a hate crime, but maybe some of the activities that the individual has been engaged in. But one of the things that I do want to address when you brought that part of it, because the mayor mentioned other individuals from maybe the transgender, the LGBTQ community who have been murdered in Richmond County. We looked at that to make sure there was no connection to those cases. That's one of the first things that we initially did, because we didn't want to get, again, caught flat-footed like we did many years ago when I worked with Ronaldo Rivera serial killer case. So I do want to set the record straight on that, let them know that we see no connection at this time. to that. We're not ruling out that it may be a hate crime, but we have no direct evidence to point us in that direction as of yet.
Any other questions from members of the media?
Well, I have one more, I guess. Sheriff, do you have a number of, or an estimate of the number of gun violence incidents you've had this year, and how many of those were homicides?
Yes, I actually have that number. Should have brought my glasses, Susan. Even though, like I said, the number, and I do want to say this, that as far as when people look at the number of homicides, we're right in line with the number we had last year. Now, that's not an excuse whatsoever because we're right at 26 for the year. Again, that number is not acceptable. But again, what people have to realize that we are a major metropolis city. Sometimes people get the idea that crime does not happen here. When crime does happen, they get excited. But for a city our size, our crime rate, especially our violent crime and property crime rate, is extremely low as you compare to other cities our size. So right now, we're right at 26 homicides to date. This is as of Friday, as of this past weekend shooting. And for as aggravated assaults with guns, we're at 174. Last year, this time to date was at 173. Now, the significant part about that, which I will not walk away from and will not with the public, is the fact that from 2019, we're only a 1% difference. But since 2013, gun violence in Richmond County has risen 79%. And that's why that remains our number one concern. Now, at one point in 2015, it was at 172%, which was our worst year since I've been in office. So that is still remains our number one concern, even though, like I said, the media events of this weekend makes it look like it's an uptick. We're right where we were last year, but that's not acceptable for us because we want to continue to make that number go down. Overall, this is a safer city, but gun violence is our number one. And I will tell this to the individuals in the streets of Augusta. When I say we can't lock our way up out of a problem, we take every measure we can when a person is locked up for a gun crime that we do not, we make every effort to keep them incarcerated. We make bond extremely difficult for them. Ultimately, it's up to the court, but we do set a high priority on the fact of the stipulations if they do get out on bond. So we're doing everything we can on that. So again, we're right where we were, but that's not acceptable to us. But we want the citizens to know that we're not going to give up, but we do need their help. There's no doubt about it. We need the help to the citizens of Augusta because they know these individuals. They know they're in their neighborhoods. So especially the youth violence. These people go home, these young people go home to mother's house, aunt's house, grandmother's house, friend's house with loaded weapons. There's no doubt that the parents and the guardian should know what's going on in their home.
Thank you, Susan. We've got a question from Brady Trapman. Brady?
Mayor Davis, just have a question for Sheriff Roundtree. I just wanted to ask you, Sheriff Roundtree, of course, we know about the proactive patrols that you guys have been doing for quite some time, but are there any other efforts that you all are taking to mitigate this violence in the community?
Absolutely. We started a program a couple of years ago called Augusta Giving Back. So we're taking it from, the proactive team is taking it from a direct boots on the ground approach to directly confronting individuals in neighborhoods who are prone to gun violence. And unfortunately, like the mayor say, that is in our low income and our Black and brown communities, and that's unfortunate. And that's why we have to take stock and take value in that. But our Augusta Giving Back program, we identify individuals from past behavior that we feel who are susceptible to be either a victim or a perpetrator of some gun violence in Richmond County based on factors that we've identified. We start off with 100 individuals, then we reach out to those individuals prior to them being victims or additional victims of gun violence or committing crimes, and offer them services. If their services in need of education, if it needs in child care, if it needs in transportation, if it needs in work training, these efforts are being provided at no charge. It's an element of our program to these individuals if they accept it. But unfortunately, the part is we can only offer it. We can't make them, we can't mandate them participate. But we feel that if we're going to have the enforcement side of gun violence reduction, we have to have the humanitarian side of it also. And sometimes that part goes unnoticed, that all we're doing is going in and locking up individuals and forgetting about them, and that's not the case. So we do have that Augusta Giving Back side of it. So, and I'm reiterating it now to individuals, even if your name is not on our list, if you feel you're in need of services, if you feel that you may be in a situation just based on your domestic situation or your neighborhood environment that you feel you're going to be a victim or subject to being put in a position when it comes to gangs and gang activity of violence, and you need an avenue or resource, they can call the sheriff office and we'll get in touch with that program and help that reduce the gun violence and violent crimes too. And that's one part of the program that people are really not trying to take advantage of. And that's sad, but it's there and we're going to continue. We're not just going to discard it because we're not getting the maximum participation in which we feel we want, but we feel that as a law enforcement agency, as a service agency, we have to be able to provide services prior to you being a victim or being a perpetrator of gun violence in Richmond County.
And a quick follow-up there, separately with COVID-19, you mentioned the number of infected deputies. How many is that at this point? And you said only a few were hospitalized?
Yeah, we had, as of last Friday, 160 individuals who have been exposed or out for COVID-19 related symptoms. Of those, I think we've had 3 that required hospitalization, and unfortunately, 1 resulted in death, which is a line of duty death that we laid Sergeant Norton to rest last week. So with the amount of calls, over 400,000 calls we take, we're extremely fortunate that we don't have that number, a larger number, but we're not out of it. The virus hasn't went away, the calls haven't stopped. So we're still providing that protective gear for our deputies. And also, again, you're talking about a detention facility that has a daily population of 950 individuals. So every day the risk is high. And that's one of the things that, when we're having our staff counselor about is how are our deputies responding to those emotionally and physically to be safe, but also emotionally being safe, that every day they're going out, every call that they are responding to is a pinch for exposure to the virus. And that's a heavy burden. And I think sometimes the public kind of loses sight of that because of some of the other things that are happening throughout the county that feel they are newsworthy. I think they forget that human side to this pandemic or policing in a pandemic, which is something that none of us have ever done.
I want to mention a few things. Sheriff, that's fantastic. Thank you. I want to mention a few things as we come to the conclusion of the press conference, and they are the following. If you have any information related to the Felicia Harris case, please call 706-821-1000. Call the Richmond County Sheriff's Office at that number, 706-821-1000. In addition to that, we are on the eve of an upcoming presidential election. Early voting begins in Richmond County on October the 12th. I urge all of our citizens that are registered voters, voter registration closed on October the 5th, on this past Monday. And early voting begins October the 12th on next Monday. We will have voting taking place at the Bell Auditorium. It will be our largest precinct here in Richmond County. Instead of coming to the municipal building, individuals will be able to go to the Bell Auditorium beginning Monday morning, October the 12th, in order to cast their vote and make their voices heard. I urge all of our citizens to go ahead and get a flu shot. If you have not done so, please take a moment, take your parents, your children, and yourselves, and please get a flu shot. As we approach the winter season, what we do not want to do is be dealing with another pandemic of flu that could put pressure on our hospitals and hinder our ability to deliver the appropriate health care to our citizens, because we're dealing with COVID-19 and also the flu, when we can take the necessary precautions to include wearing a mask, washing our hands, and watching our distance. I want to mention a resource, Sheriff Roundtree, that you're very familiar with in your work, and I applaud you and your team for standing up and wanting to move forward with providing mental health resources to all of our deputies. But I want to mention a resource in Augusta, and that's Nami Augusta. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness Augusta chapter. They can be reached at 1-800-950-NAMI, and they are prepared and ready to assist by providing mental health services to individuals all across the CSRA, and without question, right here in the city of Augusta. Please pay close attention to the City of Augusta's website and our other social media resources. This information will be made available on our website and also on our social media sites as well. If you are having challenges navigating through COVID, or if there are domestic concerns that you have, if you've even thought about, to those of you that are listening through YouTube and also Facebook and on the city's website now, if you've had concerns about suicide, the National Suicide Prevention Line is 1-800-273-8255. Again, we are here, we're a caring community. We want to make sure that we're providing for the health, welfare, and safety of all of our citizens. And with that, I want to thank the Sheriff for joining me. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sheriff.
One more thing. Yeah, I want to bring back what you brought up. Thank you for mentioning it in reference to COVID. That again, I know we've been talking about a lot of heavy subjects today, which are important subjects. But with Richmond County Sheriff Office, one of our biggest community events is our Halloween trick-or-treat giveaway that we used to give at the Sheriff's Office. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 and the schools being out and social learning, we're not going to be able to provide that service in-house like we usually do, where we dress up with the whole office. But we are going to continue that tradition on October 31st for a safe drive-through. We will be in costume. We have decorations. To come to the Sheriff's Office, you'll be directed into the Sheriff's Office back parking lot. We will have social distancing, safe candy, and Sheriff Office employees. I will be there. We'll all be in costume. We will all be looking to provide a safe and social distancing atmosphere for the citizens of Augusta. So I encourage you all, for those who have reservations with kids going out to trick or treat, those are concerns you definitely need to take heed to. But if you're looking just from 6 to 8, a safe and a very safe and sterile environment to come out to celebrate with the Sheriff's Office, we definitely encourage you to come out. And I guarantee we won't run out of candy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Sheriff. To the members of the media, thank you for tuning in, and to our citizens all across Augusta, Richmond County, thank you for being a part of today's press conference, and we look forward to additional community updates in the days ahead. Thank you.